Hey everyone, this is Jody from Autentico USA, and I am working on a project right now with one of my employees, and we are going to be painting a Hoosier cabinet that we want to do a whimsical kind of garden look to, and we wanted to experiment with the Volterra paint, and we want to do some stamping in it. So we're going to do a sample board before we go all in on the actual piece. So to do the Volterra, you need to have a base coat of the vintage paint. So I'm going to be applying a coat of one of our core colors called Harmony to this piece of sheetrock. So you have to have a base coat of either the vintage paint in order to paint the Volterra or Venice lime paint on top of it, because if you were just to start painting on top of the drywall or the wood or whatever substrate you're working on, the Volterra and the Venice have no binding agents in it. So if there's something on those substrates, that original surface, that will keep it from sticking, the paint will just come right off. Because the vintage is so porous, the Venice and the Volterra paint will grab onto the vintage paint. So all you need is one coat. We're just going to put one coat on the sheetrock, and we're going to let it completely dry. And then we're going to come back and add the Volterra and do our stamping for our experimenting and see what we come up with. So our base coat of Harmony has dried. And now we're going to apply a coat of Volterra in the woods color. Volterra is a very thick lime paint. You use it for faux finishing, you can use it for walls, you can use it for furniture, but it is super, super thick. It has no binders in it, so there's nothing to make it stick to your substrate. So you definitely want to put that base coat down, as mentioned before. And I'm just haphazardly putting it on because I'm going to go, after I get my coat on, I'm going to go and smooth it out. So it doesn't have to be put on pretty, like, or with, I usually, when I'm teaching furniture painting, I use the method of start off, finish off, and that's virtually impossible to do with the Volterra because it's so thick and it's got a lot of drag and pull. And because it's that heavily bodied lime paint, it's going to be able to hold the texture. It's going to be able to hold those designs that you're trying to put into the paint and dry that way, whereas a typical chalk paint won't do that. You have to make sure you put it on really thick. Just spread it out. This color is absolutely beautiful. It's going to dry lighter than how it looks wet, and then we're going to burnish it and it'll bring back some of the darker color. That's the nature of lime paint and how it works. If you don't get complete coverage, if you skip a little bit, I don't know if that's showing up on camera, where some of the Harmony or some of that undercoat is coming through, that's completely fine. That's just going to lend itself to our final design. So we've got our coat on, and I'm going to take my spreader and I'm just going to flatten out the paint because I don't want to have a lot of brush strokes. It'll show up in my final coats. So I'm basically just smoothing it out. If I get a little bit of stop or start marks, I'm okay with that. It's just a lot better than having the brush strokes. Because the paint is so thick, those brush strokes will show up in the texture. So got rid of about 75% of the brush strokes. I'm going to use my stamp holder. And these are IOD stamps, Iron Orchid Designs. And you definitely want to use a stamp that has more negative than positive. What that means is you don't want your design to be a lot of the flat. You want to see more lines. And I'm going to apply that to the stamp or to the holder. And we're gonna take this and I'm just gonna stamp it down right in the corner and then lift straight up. And then I'm going to I'm gonna dab it to get off that paint. And then let me try in the other direction, and I'm just stamping straight down. When you stamp down, try not to shimmy your holder because you'll lose your design. And then you just pull straight up. Oh yeah, it's definitely creating that texture. It's gonna be very subtle with the stamps. So cleaning that off, all right, and then let's take our roller and we're gonna roll through. And I'm pressing down pretty hard. Okay, and then I'm gonna do this other side. Okay, all right. So let me do one more stamp here. As I mentioned, this is just for us. This is just a sample board. We're just experimenting here and trying to figure out the best design for our cabinet. Let me put it down here. So you definitely want to clean off your stamp after each pressing. Okay, so you can kind of see here where the paint was thin so that the design didn't go all the way through. So you definitely want to make sure that it's thick enough. But in this instance, you know, we're learning here and we'll figure out what to do with it. Okay, so now what's going to happen is this needs to set up to dry for about 30 minutes to an hour. And we're gonna come back and we're gonna burnish it. Okay, so our piece has been drying now for quite a few minutes, and this is about the look that you want. It's not completely dry, you can tell by the splotchiness. So I would say this is about 60 to 75% dry, and that's what we're looking for. So we're gonna start burnishing it, and you can use several different tools. You can use a spatula, you can use a trowel, you can even use a paper bag, and I'm gonna show you how to do all three. So first I'm gonna start with the spatula, and you just start going across your design back and forth in sweeping motions. You can see it's darkening the darker parts, and it's bringing out the details and the lines. We're getting a little bit of crumbling, and that's the lime in the paint, and that is completely normal. You can take a brush and brush away those little dust particles, and also keep your surface of your edge clean of your tools. This is just, it's really just bringing out the texture of the roller, the edges of the leaves. You just keep going back and forth. Okay. All right, so that's with the plastic scraper. And then I'll switch to the trowel to do this next portion. So with the trowel, you just kind of go back and forth in a circular motion. You can go in a sweeping motion. Now, where it's starting to do a different texture, that's where the paint is really thick and it hasn't dried yet. But when this is, when the whole entire piece is done, that's just going to add to the final look. If you want to switch back to your plastic scraper, it's a little bit more gentle, you can do that. So you can use one tool or you can use a combination of the tools, which that's what I like to do. I like to use a combination of the tools because it just gives you different looks. Use my brush to brush away the excess. Okay. And then I'll show you what the bag looks like. I like to take my hand, stick it inside of the bag to create like a poof. Just go back and forth. If you start to get lines, you can flatten it out. Flatten it out more like that. And the more burnishing is best. Like you really can't get enough burnishing. And you can burnish it up to several hours after the paint has been applied. I'm going to use the sanding block to also kind of burnish it some. That's another tool. And if you can see, it kind of smooths out where the paint was really thick. So a sanding block is good to have on hand as well. I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to put the heat on it and bring out some more of this lighter sections. So the heat gun step is completely optional. You can let it dry on its own. I just did that for camera purposes. You can continue to burnish. I'm going to go back to my plastic scraper, burnish it some more, bring out some more of that texture, go in the opposite direction. It's getting shinier on some of the higher points from the burnishing, and that's what we want. When we apply our finish, those shinier parts should get even shinier. Okay, so I'm gonna pick this up and hold it closer to the camera so that you can get a good look at the texture and see the shininess and everything to it. It is absolutely stunning in person. You could really see the outline of the leaves, the texture, the dimension, the depth. So I'm gonna let this dry some more and then we will come back and put a finish on it and get it wrapped up. So we are back. The surface is completely dry. And I'm going to try several different waxes to determine which look I like best. As I've mentioned, this is a fairly new product to us. Full disclosure, I do not have a ton of experience with it, so I'm kind of learning with you guys. And I have noticed that where the paint was really thick, it gave me, and I'm gonna try to lift this up here, it gave me a really cool texture. I love this cratered texture here. And that is one of the perks of using the Volterra, is getting all this texture. So what I learned is where the paint was a lot thicker, and when I went to go burnish it, that's what created those pits and craters. So when I do future projects, I'm going to try to achieve more of that. Okay, so I'm going to use several different colors of waxes in different spots to see what kind of look that we're going to get. And the first one that I'm going to do is the dark brown wax. And I'm just going to apply the wax liberally, just working it in to a section here. I'm really pouncing in, scrubbing in. The Volterra is so porous. It really just soaks, the wax just soaks into the surface, which is fine. But it's not like waxing chalk paint or another type of paint that doesn't have as much lime in it. And then I'm going to take a sanding sponge and I'm going to sand. I think for my taste, it's a little too dark. I might switch to the light brown and see how that does, but I feel like the dark brown just absorbed into it and doesn't really show the patterns or the textures. So I will make a mental note of this to not necessarily use the dark brown wax with this combination. You can try to sand some more to bring that original paint back through. That does seem to help. So just consider this me making mistakes for you so that you don't have to make them. It is a nice smooth surface though. If you wanted a subtle effect, you by all means could do this. It's just a matter of personal preference. Okay, so let's try a lighter wax. Taupe is one of the most underused waxes, in my opinion. It is a gray beige color. Pairs well with the warm undertones. And application is the same. Oh yeah, this is definitely picking up that texture a lot better than the dark brown. I can really see the contrast in the design. Oh, you can really see those crates and craters and pits that I was talking about earlier. And let's give it a little sanding. Oh, very nice. The design is really popping out on this with the taupe wax. It also tones down the brown. If you find this a little too brown for you, the taupe kind of balances that out. All right, the next one I want to try is one of our metallic waxes. And this is the sparkling bronze. And it is a metallic wax. It is very subtle. When the light hits it just right, you'll definitely be able to see the shimmer in it. But I just wanted to try this. I haven't used a metallic wax over the Volterra yet. Oh yeah, that is definitely shining up for sure. We also have metallic waxes in gold, silver, and a copper. Okay, and then I'm going to wipe off the excess. Oh wow. So that really brings out the darker spots in the design. It I think because of the reflection of the metallic, the light reflecting off of it, it's showing the texture even more. I really like that, the way that it looks here. You can really see the metallic of it. And then just to show you it's the dark brown, and then we have the taupe. Okay, I kind of want to go crazy. Only way to figure out if things work is to try it. And we're going to try the pastel rose wax. You know, with the right design and the right color and the right piece, it's actually not too bad. Of course, if you're not a pink fan, you're not going to like it no matter what I do. But I just wanted to see, what it looked like. It's really not bad. I've used this pink wax over the pink paints and over the white paints, and it's really very pretty on the right pieces. We do it on more feminine style furniture like vanities and mirrors and such. It's picking up the texture. It's showing the dark spots, the burnished spots. So it's doing everything it's supposed to do. Where's my sanding sponge? We sand it a little bit. Oh yeah, it's really getting into the texture. Yeah, like I said, with the right piece, the pastel rose would be a good choice. Maybe you could use a actual rose or a floral stencil. I am going for a more botanical look for this particular sample board and the piece that we're going to be doing the final look on. So this wouldn't work, but I was just curious to see, what it looked like. Yeah, it's not bad. Show there what that looks like. Okay, then I have amber. I love using the amber wax because it is a very warm wax. When you pop the top, it actually looks like a neon yellow, but it does not dry like this. That neon yellowness is what warms up the colors. You definitely want to use it on warm surfaces. It does not go well over cool colors at all. If you put it over a white, it will amber it. So you don't want to use it over whites, but I use it over darker, warmer colors. We're going to use it over this neutral here and just see what it does. So it's definitely keeping it more in the color family that Woods belongs to. Woods is the original color that I used of the Volterra. It's not showing the texture too much. And I think that's just because the amber is not it doesn't have a heavy tint in it. So there's not much to contrast. And give it a sanding. So if you wanted a more subtle look you could use the amber wax for your piece. You can still see the texture. It just doesn't stand out as much as it does with one of the more heavily tinted waxes. Now, the waxes take about 45 minutes to dry. And once they're dry, you want to buff them with a buffing brush or a microfiber towel, and then they'll be done. So this sample board, we'll use this to kind of decide what we want our final look to be on the piece that we're working on. And when we start working on that piece, we will record its progress as well. And if you have any questions about this product, feel free to comment down below. You can also check out our website at Autentico-Paint-USA and follow us on all of our social media. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have TikTok, and we will be glad to help you in any way possible. Thank you very much.